In Explorers the other week, we looked at the 77s in Daniel 9, and I thought of doing this after a conversation I had with Brian. So, starting at the beginning of Daniel, as a bit of an introduction to it, in the first verse it says, "In the first year of Darius, son of Xerxes, a Mede by descent, who was made ruler over the Babylonian kingdom. In the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood from the scriptures, according to the word of the Lord given to Jeremiah the prophet, that the desolation of Jerusalem would last for 70 years. So I turned to the Lord God and pleaded with him in prayer and petition, in fasting and in sackcloth and ashes. I prayed to the Lord my God and confessed." And then between verse 4 and verse 19 is Daniel's prayer, which was probably towards the end of the 70 years. And we won't look at that because that's not what we were looking at in Explorers. Then, as he was praying, I'll just carry on in verse 20. "While I was speaking and praying, confessing my sin and the sin of my people Israel, and making my requests to the Lord my God for his holy hill, while I was still in prayer, Gabriel, the man I had seen in the earlier vision, came to me in swift flight about the time of the evening sacrifice. He instructed me and said to me, 'Daniel, I have now come to give you insight and understanding. As soon as you began to pray, a word went out which I have come to tell you, for you are highly esteemed. Therefore consider the word and understand the vision.'" It's a vision. Vision of the 77s. "77s are decreed for your people and your holy city, to finish transgression, to put an end to sin, to atone for wickedness, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy place." Now, all of those things, probably more than anything else, you would relate to the work of Jesus. I'll just read them again. To finish transgression, to put an end to sin, to atone for wickedness, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy place. So it's saying that 77s are decreed before these things take place. And sevens, I'll just read a passage from a commentary on the subject. Should have prepared this earlier. Okay, 77s are determined. There is almost universal agreement among Bible scholars and commentators that this refers to 70 sets of 7 years, or weeks of years. And in ancient Hebrew, weeks simply refers to a unit of 7. The Hebrew word here is often used to mean a unit of 7 days, but it may also be used for a unit of 7 years. So we have got a period of 70 lots of 7 years, which is 490 years. So we're looking at after a period of 490 years, all of these things that seem most obvious to do with Jesus are going to happen. So where are we? 77s are decreed for you. Right, know and understand this. From the time the word goes out to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until the Anointed One, obviously Jesus again, the ruler comes, there will be 7 sevens and 62 sevens. So that's 69 sevens. So there'll be 69 sevens until the Anointed One comes. So 69 lots of 7 years is 483 years. There will be 7 sevens and 62 sevens. So it's split the 70 sevens into 3 lots of 3 different periods. 7 sevens, 62 sevens, and then we're on 1 7, totaling 70 sevens. It will be rebuilt. The word goes out to restore and rebuild Jerusalem. It will be rebuilt with streets and a trench, but in times of trouble. I think there's another passage which I can't tell you what it was, where they were rebuilding Jerusalem with one hand and had a spear in another hand. So it doesn't actually specifically say that after the 7 sevens the rebuilding work will be finished, but we have to kind of like take that as read. So we've got that period of 7 sevens, 49 years, where they're rebuilding Jerusalem. And then it goes on in verse 26. After the 62 sevens, the Anointed One will be put to death and have nothing. Again, quite clearly referring to Jesus. So we've got these 69 sevens, which start when the word goes out to restore and rebuild Jerusalem. So we'll find out when that was. We need to look at Nehemiah chapter 2 for that. Okay, Nehemiah chapter 2. In the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, so this is our starting point of the 69 sevens. In the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when wine was brought for him, I took the wine and gave it to the king. I had not been sad in his presence before, so the king asked me, "Why does your face look so sad when you are not ill? This can be nothing but sadness of heart." I was very much afraid, but I said to the king, "May the king live forever. Why should my face not look sad when the city where my ancestors are buried lies in ruins, and its gates have been destroyed by fire?" The king said to me, "What is it you want?" Then I prayed to the God of heaven, and I answered the king, "If it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in his sight, let him send me to the city in Judah where my ancestors are buried so that I can rebuild it." Then the king, with the queen sitting beside him, asked me, "How long will your journey take, and when will you get back?" It pleased the king to send me, so I set a time. So, going back to Daniel 9, from the time that the word goes out, we now know that started in the month of Nisan in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes. So the next thing to do is to look at the Wikipedia page of King Artaxerxes. And on there that it says his reign started in 465 BC. So if we take 20 years off that, because it was the 20th year of his reign when the decree went out, that's 445. So the 483 years starts in 445 BC. But it's not as simple as that, because the Hebrew calendar was different to our calendar, and it was based on 12 months of 30 days. And then there were some leap months or leap years to fix it when it went out of sync. And so we have to base these years on 30-day months. And there's an example of another prophecy in the Bible that is based on 30-day months. In Revelation 11, 12 and 13, there are some passages that use 42 months, which is 3.5 years, and 1,260 days interchangeably. I'll just read them out. They will trample on the holy city for 42 months. And I will, another verse says, and I will appoint my 2 witnesses, and they will prophesy for 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. And another verse, the woman fled into the wilderness to a place prepared for her by God, where she might be taken care of for 1,260 days. And finally, the beast was given a mouth to utter proud words and blasphemies, and to exercise its authority for 42 months. So as far as prophecy, this is an example of prophecy where months and years are based on months of 30 days. So the next thing is to do some maths, which I have got here. Okay, so 69 lots of 7 years is 483 years. If we're basing them years on 12 lots of 30 days, so that's 360-day years. So if we if we multiply 483 years times 360 days, you get 173,880 days. So if you go forward 173,880 days from 445 BC, you get to around about the early 30s of AD 30 something, possibly AD 32. So that ties in really nicely with the time of Jesus' ministry and death. So we've got a prophecy here that is very specific and was fulfilled accurately. So one of the criticisms of Daniel by secular historians is that they don't think that Daniel was written when it was. I'm just going to find a website to just read a passage about that. So this is the Wikipedia page of Darius the Mede, who was the king when this happened, when Daniel was praying. And for example, it says, this gives you an example of what is sometimes you might find on Wikipedia. The broad consensus is that Daniel never existed. And then later or further down it says there is broad agreement that the stories, again it says stories, make up chapters 1 to 6 are legendary in character and the visions of chapters 7 to 12 were added during the persecution of Antiochus. And the book itself, Daniel, being completed soon after 164 BC. And the reason for that is because the prophecies in Daniel 11 about the king of the north and the king of the south are so accurate in the build-up to Antiochus, and in 164 BC, the Maccabean Rebellion, I think it's called, that they think that the book of Daniel must have been written after that time. So let's suppose it was, but it obviously wasn't. But let's just go along with it and say that it was. Then, even if it was written then, the prediction of 69 sevens from 445 BC still stands and is still accurate. So even if it was the book of Daniel was written in 164 BC, that's still nearly 200 years before the prophecy is fulfilled. So it's still amazing in that case. Right. I just want to finish off by going back to the 77s, because we've only looked at the 69 sevens, and then we're going to leave the 70th seven up. I'll just read it. Right. Right, so after the 62 sevens, the anointed one will be put to death and will have nothing. The people of the ruler who will come will destroy the city and the sanctuary, probably referring to the Romans destroying the temple in AD 70. The end will come like a flood. War will continue until the end, and desolations have been decreed. He will confirm a covenant with many for 1 7, which is the 70th seven. In the middle of the seven, he will put an end to sacrifice and offering, and at the temple he will set up an abomination that causes desolation, that Jesus referred to in Matthew 24, until the end that is decreed is poured out on him. But I don't want to go into the 70th week, because there are very different views on it. Some people will say it was fulfilled in AD 70, and other people will say that it still hasn't been fulfilled. So we'll leave it there, but I just wanted to let you know what we do in Explorers, and perhaps I'll do some more.